Hey guys, it's Celine, and today is Wednesday, the 5th of May. Yes, hallelujah. I'm just grab me my beautiful blue opal here to help me focus a bit because I have news, yes, for as to, whoever is interested in what my life is like. I just landed myself into a menopause, and this would not be such a big deal to report on, I would hope to think, because there's, people talking about that. It's not really an area where I would tend to think that I have to, talk about this at length so much. Were it not for the fact that I actually am finding new ways to put my Tummo practice to really good use in this context. So Tummo, having practiced Tummo for 16 months, and then getting into this phase has made me, has allowed me, I should say, to figure this menopause thing out for myself in a way that I haven't heard anybody talk about ever. And I just feel so much better. It's incredible. So I've got a ton of ideas and a ton of thoughts and a ton of things that I want to share about this whole process, about what it feels like for me, about, ideas and conclusions that I'm coming to. There's going to be some noises from over yonder. I hope that doesn't register too much on my recording here, because there's some kind of a kids event going on out the back over there in the distance. So the first thing that I have to, just give to you right away here, I am going to be 55 in August. I'm a bit on the late side, I would say. I've been, looking at menopause symptoms and trying to figure out whether I had any up until, what is it now, 5.5 weeks ago or so. I had regular periods, more or less, between where my, interval between my periods was like between 24 or 28 to 28 days or so. I had not had any skipped periods so far. It's like I had no notion myself of a life, of having this life, that what you see here, being me without the hormonal cycle affecting what I do, what I can do, how much of everything I can do, and so on and so forth. What I didn't know, or didn't really have a clue how much it actually really affected me. And I'm still in shock. It's insane. Because what happens when you do Tummo, what I was saying just now, this, energy, Kundalini energy, Shakti energy, circulation in your body, is that once you figure out how exactly to tweak the Tummo so that you can use it in this condition compared to, the normal fertile phase method that I have been using so far. There is a difference in my Tummo method, which I will go into in a separate video, because that's, Tummo Intel, and that's got to go where people can find it, hopefully. I lost the beginning of my sentence now. I'm just so impressed with, once I got that figured out, I got out of this difficulty that I was in, because it was difficult at first. I had noticed that I was skipping my period for the first time since I was 12. So I have had periods since I was 12 on the clock, every month. And I have recently, in the past couple of years, been taking note of the dates, exactly keeping track of my periods for a total of 3 years. I've actually managed to, pinpoint exactly what was happening and when. But I have never realized how much energy went from me, and including energy from my Shakti Tummo practice, actually just disappeared into my reproductive system, apparently. Because, so chronologically, this is what happened. I was expecting my number X, I don't know, period, 10 days ago, and it wasn't happening. I'd been having quite, noticeable PMS for a couple of days before that. I have been having, I suppose, not arthritic, but muscle and joint aches, and especially in my lower back and my hips for since January. So for all of this, 2021 so far. That's not completely gone, but it's improving. I have been feeling quite tired. I had been feeling, I should be speaking in the past tense really. I had been feeling like I didn't have any, any energy really left over for anything. I had bits of inspiration to do one thing or another, whatever it was, whether it was something creative or writing, or on the other hand, housework or doing something else practical or whatever, on and off for a day or so, and then 3 or 4 more days without any inspiration, without any, whereas I am normally, I can consider myself to be a healthy person. I am reasonably fit. I was blaming it all on the lockdown, on the atmosphere in the world, and all the things, where everybody's having the same kinds of struggles to keep themselves motivated. I mean, why not? Why shouldn't I have this trouble as well? So that makes perfect sense. It all made a fair amount of sense, I thought. Fast forward to 10 days ago, I was noticing, okay, so this period really isn't coming, and my aches and pains were increasing. My hip joints were giving me hell, really. My lower back is a bit of a, it's a bit of a sensitive area because of doing quite a bit of heavy lifting in an earlier phase of my life, and driving a rather large, heavy van around for 11 years hasn't helped either. So my lower back, there's a couple of joints there that just tend to get into trouble if I, do too much sudden bending over, for example, with hoovering or something like that, which is where I would tend to bend over a lot, that kind of thing. My muscles start, there's issues there. So I was, the sense of not having energy, not having inspiration increased over, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days or so last week. I haven't done much video making at that time. I did a couple of Tummo updates, which were actually more spiritual in nature. That was fine. That was up to that point of making those videos. So that was last week, Tuesday, I think, if I remember correctly. That was more or less where I was at, what the person you see in those videos was this person who was still in the middle of things. I hadn't come to the conclusion yet at that point that I was actually having a menopause shift, so I hadn't realized that was really happening actually. I did one other video about, which I don't remember what it was about, but it's easy enough to look back, and that was it really. And then Wednesday, Thursday, I was so miserable. I was like, okay, this is what's happening. I'm figuring out that this is menopause, and all I read, oh God, you guys, all I read on the internet and hear from people about, doesn't matter where I go, whether it's Facebook or any place, about menopause, what what's supposed to be happening to you, what can you do with this thing when your mum's not around, or you don't have any older sisters who've been through all this stuff. and so on and so forth. What's a girl supposed to do? I Google, okay? And what comes out is misery. More stories of what a nightmare it is, hormone replacement, blah-de-blah, and so on and so forth. If that's your line of business, I'm not a fan. I never have been. And even now, even less so. But that's not my issue right here, because I've got a different approach, okay? So I'm trying to put that into words here. I'm not saying hormone replacement therapy is useless or that it can't be really great for some people to do this. It's up to you, really. It's up to whoever, whatever the situation really is. I don't think it solves anything, really. Whereas what I've got here, I really find extraordinarily helpful. And there's new insights, new information coming into my life in this way that I would not have been able to figure out if I hadn't been doing my Tummo for 16 months beforehand, okay? So that's where I was at. Last week I was utterly miserable. I was feeling so depleted. I was feeling almost crushed to the extent that I didn't have, I couldn't manage to, I was feeling like, this is really bad. If this is the situation I'm going to be in for the next X number of years, I've got a problem, what am I going to do? And the times that I actually managed or got around to doing a little bit of Tummo or energy work or whatever, I found it difficult to do. I found it very, very difficult to focus at all, to get anything done. It seemed like my Dantian wasn't functioning properly. My lowest number 1 Dantian wasn't functioning properly, so that was a big problem. The first clue that happened to me of a positive approach that I actually learned about menopause, that came to me, the first installment, so to speak, of something more positive surrounding menopause came from an Indian yoga teacher woman who's on YouTube, whose link, I will put the link to that video in the description to this one, of course. And listening to her and seeing the exercises that she shares and general sort of a mindset that she communicates in that video, that really made some difference already. But I still wasn't, I didn't get any much, more than what she actually says there. You have to look after yourself. When you're in menopause, you have to make sure you go outside more often. You have to go for walks more often. You have to take care of yourself. Up to that point, most often, almost all females have run around the world, looking after everybody else. And this is the time where you have to look out for yourself, first of all. So I took that on board. I had noticed that whenever I was outside, I was feeling a bit better. Walking around in the little park over there would make me feel better. Seeing the green, what she says exactly, is, seeing green stuff and little animals and stuff like that. So, yeah. So far, so good. Okay. I noticed each time I was sleeping fine. So a lot of times for menopause, one of the symptoms that is given is lack of sleep. And very often, I think the periods that I've experienced sleeplessness in my life, there's a few, periods that's actually happened. Whereas normally I sleep like the log, I am like this zombie, total knockout. I'm very good at sleeping, very good, excellent, Olympic levels sleeping, this is, I hadn't noticed so far that that was going to get to me. I wasn't that tense. However, I do know from my experience with sleepless periods that once it starts happening to you, you get so tense, also from toxins in your body, that sleeplessness actually becomes a pattern. It sort of takes you over, and it's like an addiction to your own adrenaline almost, in a way, which one way of looking at it, I don't know, which is just keeps you awake, and the anxiety about not sleeping will actually keep you awake, which is a nightmare. So I hadn't gotten to that level so far yet, but it was, I suppose, kind of a matter of time. Each morning I would wake up, I would notice, aches and pains in my back, and my everything would feel painful, and I'd, be miserable. So I go back to my Tummo practice. This is the big, this is what happened for me. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to convey the change here, because I suppose I will be able to convey it more as time progresses, as time moves on, because it's a huge change for me in my life. I suppose I have a lot of practice doing my Tummo the way I, have done it so far. I've described this on my channel a number of times already. There's a lot of Tummo intel from my experience on my channel that you can look up if you're into that type of thing. At this point, I noticed again for, I don't know, maybe the 5th or 6th time or so, that I had such trouble getting my Tummo energy, my Shakti energy into, there was enough Shakti energy, but I couldn't get it to the level of the Dantian, which sits right here. So I'm still fascinated by how this Tummo approach is really a marriage between the knowledge that the Indians have, the Indian people have, of Shakti and Kundalini energy, which is two ways of saying the same thing, really, on the one hand, and the knowledge that the Chinese have of the workings of the inside of the body, the invisible energy workings inside the body, where the Dantian comes up. We do not have Western terminology either for Shakti or for the Dantians. So this is really tough to explain, right? You would tend to think that the first thing we have to figure out, because Westerners, that of whom I am one, always want to know exactly physically what it is that we're talking about. And in both of those cases, you can only experience it. The experience is actually the same for everybody, of the Shakti energy, of the Dantian and its workings. And still we have no words. We in the West have no words. We have no knowledge, nothing about these things. So I've been struggling with this for all this week, trying to, like, oh my God. Because the difference, once I got this sorted out, and I'll go into my process and how I went about it in a little bit, but the difference is massive. Having figured out how to do my Tummo, how to get this Dantian to come back to life, has deleted all my physical problems. I have more energy now than I have had for 40 years, which is like, it's mind-boggling. I have not had this level of being alive in all manners and ways, in all fields, since I was 12. And I'm 55. Oh, it's incredible. It is so incredible that I have spent more than 40 years fighting to have some form of a life. I have spent decades, more and more as years progressed, trying to keep my show on the road, trying to do my things, have an interest in things, participate in things, change what needed to be changed. I have had to fight and battle the drain on my energy for decades. And I didn't even know that was at which level I was actually doing that. At which level I was at odds with my reproductive system, with my hormonal system. I've been complaining about hormones for quite a bit. Anybody who's been here longer on this channel knows that I mention hormones occasionally. I try to also talk about other things, but damn, yes, it's been a struggle. But I didn't know. I noticed the headaches, the hypoglycemic moments where your sugar level just suddenly goes down and you have to find something to snack on, otherwise you're going bonkers, other phases and moments, the joint pains and the other things. I did not have children myself. That is an important factor, also having to do with the whole Dantian business and the Tummo, the operation of the process of Tummo, because I'm sure that if you've had children physically and vibrationally, this is going to be different for you. I do not know whether, because I can't tell, whether if I'd had kids, my menopausal problems would have been less or worse than they were. I have no way of knowing. I do not know people who are my age who've had kids that I can compare stories with. The only person that I know, close enough to see and talk about these things often enough is my friend who lives in the same town as I, and she had her menopause. She's a bit older than me. She had her menopause, I think, 15 years ago or so, and hers just disappeared, and she's had all sorts of burnout symptoms and things like that, what with having a tough job. She also did not have kids. So there's not that much intel for us to compare stories. And although she is, she's the one who contributed the whole Dantian system, who talked about this and drew my attention to the Dantian as an actual factor in what I was telling her about the whole about my Tummo experiences at that point. Last year, it was she who pointed this out to me. It sounds like you're talking about the Dantian, because she has experience with those from her Qigong practice. So there's that. Other than that, in terms of what it's really like, in terms of numbers, I have no clue. I hope there's people out there. I will try to, find ways through social media as well, to try and get a bit more numbers as to who's got the worst deal with the menopause. Is it the mothers who had kids, or on average, or how does that really work? I don't know. For me, I just I was in this situation. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm falling to pieces here. My life, such as it is, which I've cobbled together out of all these disparate elements that I talk about on my channel a lot, that I am passionate about, that I care about. It feels like this life is suddenly, it's becoming harder and harder to keep going. So, what did I do? What's the Tummo tweak? The Tummo tweak is that there's a couple of approaches, okay? The Shakti comes up out of the earth, into your root chakra, into your perineum. There's an approach that goes through the middle channel, where the Shakti is invited to go into the middle channel. It's relatively easy to do. It goes up into the body like that to the Dantian. It becomes Tummo energy once this Shakti is sort of halted, its progression is halted in the Dantian, and it's held there so that it sits there and becomes this intense heat. This is what is called Tummo, normally what I tend to call Tummo first level, because there's two more Dantians, and in each of those Dantians there's a different new transformation taking place of the same basic Shakti energy. So the middle channel is the regular way to go. My issue with that is that it tends to not go sideways into the body as much, and I have chosen myself to use an approach where the Shakti energy is guided along the spine, along the spinal column and the vertebrae, upwards, around the female reproductive organs necessarily, to the first Dantian, where the energy goes from the spine forward into the Dantian, does its work, and so on and so forth. You can do Tummo perfectly in this way. The energy goes up again through the back, along the backbone, behind your organs in your belly, behind your stomach, and so on, upwards, up until your heart Dantian, which sits like right here, comes forward again, does its process in the second Dantian, and so on and so forth. That's the process as I have been practicing it for those 16 months along the backbone. Two different versions, okay? The version of the middle channel, which is the regular classic traditional version that this is the only thing I've heard people talk about really ever. My version along the spine that I've occasionally heard small references to, mostly from my friend who's into Qigong, same there. I have to keep drinking a bit because I'm not used to talking this much at the moment. I haven't done any lengthy chats, so yeah. This new version, so the Menopause Tummo version, okay, is different in that it is a middle channel version. However, instead of going zoof, which is my reason why I do not use the middle channel that much, is that it is a Shakti highway. I have said this before a couple of times. I will say it again. The middle channel is a place where the Shakti has kind of like this, if you're not careful, it becomes like hyperspeed Shakti. It goes ziff up into over here. And I think that's also one reason why people get in trouble with Shakti energy, with Kundalini energy, whichever way you want to, whatever you want to call it. Because it just goes too quickly into a different vibration, into a different level, into a different worldview and frame of reference, and you just get lost. That's what happens to people who get into, Kundalini trouble at some point or other, is they get a massive amount of energy in one area or another about which they have no control, and they never learn to figure out how to direct the Shakti in the first place. Nobody told them that was a possibility. So I'm not a huge fan of the middle channel, or I'm a fan of the middle channel. I'm a fan of everything that's inside here. I'm just not a fan of using the middle channel for Shakti work unless you know exactly what it is that you want and what it is that you're doing. But in this particular case, what I have done, and here it comes, is I import the Shakti, I let the Shakti energy enter into my underbelly, into my bottom, like this, in the area where the middle channel will start. So if you look at me like this, it is like the axis. If you had a lead, what's that called? A lead weight on a string. You would hold the string here, and the lead would go down through me in a, vertically like so. If that line ends at my bottom, that's where the Shakti comes into me, right? I have another exercise which makes it really easy to feel, finally, that it just came to me at one point, which makes it really easy to feel Shakti energy so that there's no mistake. That will also be done in another video, okay? What I did was the Shakti comes in like so, but instead of it going zoof up to the Dantian where nothing happened because my Dantian was unhappy and it was kind of shut down completely, I imagined or felt the channel branching out to all sides. So there's a middle pillar, like a big oak tree in the middle, like that middle channel, but there is big branches going off to the sides, like so, 1 and 2. Those are official, you can find those in different, I'll stick an image in the description. There's just a Wikipedia page about Tummo that has pics of these nadis, they're called, these side channels. But I used more than just those 2. I have used, I think, in total 6 side channels, side branches to the middle pillar. Okay, so there's the one in the middle, the one on the left, one on the right. There's one on each side to the back of those, and there's one on each side to the front of those. And I suppose you might as well include a 7th one in the middle, in the front, which is separate from the middle channel and sits between it and your skin. Okay, something like that. Those, the nadis, okay, either the nadis or the ones that are to the back of those, so a bit more towards this part of you, they end in your ovaries. And that's the whole secret. Going from the ovaries with a Shakti energy line to the Dantian and connecting the whole kit together like that. To me, it wasn't like specifically going through the ovaries. I just went into this whole branching mode, like my big oak tree image like that. And I just went with my Shakti going sideways like that and into the whole deal, from supporting my Dantian like this, like the crown of an oak tree. And my Dantian lit up like the biggest smile you've seen in your life. And since that time, my problems have gone down, my energy has gone up, and I have kept watch of my lower Dantian ever since. Morning, middle of the night, evening, I just keep going back to how are we doing? Are we doing okay? Yes, everything's fine. Do we need a bit more here or a bit more there? Can I do more Tummo away from this, going back up to my normal pattern for my heart? Fine, I don't care. It's fine. It's a revolution. And looking back, it's like mind-boggling. Like I said, how much energy have I spent and just spent into being a fertile female that I didn't really want to be in the first place, because I was never in the position to have children and look after them and take care of them. And it's not that I have never had a desire for children. I mean, I would have liked to have a couple, sure. But I've had too many problems. My husband's had problems. And not having kids meant that we had a ton more space and time, and not to mention money, to spend on ourselves. on improving our own lives, making our lives come together, talking together. You know, the two of us, my husband and I, we've had so much that we could figure out, that we needed to figure out really badly, also in the recent past. What with first, you know, figuring out the chaos that I came from in my life. I spent a few years, like I said, driving around on the road, trying to have a life that way. And it was never easy. That was impossible. The work space that I was in at the time, the career space, was impossible to combine with kids. And I was already too old by then. I feel, you know, I feel that if I'd had kids, I would have to have had them before I was 30. And that's already, that's 25 years ago. So, meh, you know, it's not really a theme in my life. My mother, who was a huge influence and a huge, barrier to some things and a huge aid in other things in my life, passed away when I was 28. And before she died, I actually spent a lot of my time and my mind space, certainly, on her and what she needed. And I never had the opportunity to even, or the freedom of mind or any of it, to ever decide even. And the only time I remember talking about this to my mum, she more or less forbade me to have kids. And she was very right to do so. It wasn't the most elegant way of going about this at the time. But yeah, she was right. So, I suppose this is my check-in level of things at the moment, which I kind of figured out that was going to work best for me anyway, to talk about what it was like, my whole thing here, with my change in perspective also, because I did not know how my female anatomy basically, it allows for the having of children, but it's not really the same as having a personal life or a personal growth in your life and all those things. It's like, at least the way it works for me, we're engineered by nature, I'm assuming, not talking matrix type situation here. I'm not even talking patriarchy here, which is kind of interesting. It's nature that has engineered this here, to produce the next generation. Next generation's plural. So we females are like carriers of both the past and the future in the present. And you have to carry that all around with you, and which is what I suppose you mean when you're talking about goddess, really. Hints and thoughts like that. Whereas in patriarchal culture, of course, where you're supposed to earn money and do the things, be busy with the same things that everybody else is busy about, this whole notion of carrying time in your very body, in your cells, it's not really a factor. It doesn't even compute, because it's always about now and, scoring, and because it's a very masculine approach. And I think that's an explanation, or that can be used, this set of ideas can be used to explain for a lot of people, also men, why their lives aren't more harmonious than they are, why their lives lack the harmony that people really look for and really need. So there's a lot of thoughts in that manner. There's a lot of those types of thoughts that I'm having also about myself. how hard I fought. Sheesh, it's like freaking me out how this was my card, 10 of pence. It was my card for this session here, for this this witch check-in. The light is fading fast because there's another big cloud coming over, a big like a squall. It's been raining and there's been hail occasionally today. They're promising us better weather for the weekend and so on, so we should be okay soon enough. But this has been such a big deal, and in terms of check-in, I have one other element that's really a lot of fun for us. I have that's nothing to do with all the hormones, but it has taken up a lot of my brain space and my time. I was talking a year or so ago about a bit of an inheritance that that was in the pipeline. It has actually come through. Yay. So we bought new mattresses and they're coming in June. I've shopped around for, sheets and stuff for on the new bed and all that kind of good stuff. I've been shopping. So I've been doing a great deal of shopping on mostly very useful things. I've also shopped for books. I've got a set of books coming this way. They will be here, I don't know, between 1 and 3 weeks or so by now, I think, about Tibetan astrology, and another one that's actually the basis, one of my basic books about Tummo that's coming this way that I've also found online, but I'd just love to have a, bound volume. It's going to be awesome. And the third one is about the I Ching, because the I Ching knowledge is relevant to Tibetan astrology, and both, I think, are relevant to the background or the cultural background in which Tummo practice finds its place. So that's going to be all really cool and really interesting to dive into over the summer or next year or whenever, when I get this stuff, because it's going to be, this is stuff that I will take one page at a time, because I'm going to really enjoy doing that. So there's that, and changes in the house, a couple of things, but not too massive. A new washing machine is suddenly an option, which is like really interesting that, suddenly you have a bit of money and you've been talking about things and the practical things that could be done. And yeah, our washing machine is quite old. And the next time you try to do a laundry, the washing machine has broken down. So it was like, it's conscious, it was aware, and it is going into retirement, the poor thing. So there's that. In terms of check-in, that's my thing at the moment. I'm going to go off to town to buy me a bit of fabric, because I've got a little sewing project that I'm going to be doing when it stops raining. So in a bit. For now, thank you so much for watching my tale here. I really hope that this is going to be, either enlightening or supportive to some people, because menopause is something we all run into sooner or later. So I'm going to be spreading this Tummo intel with a bit more gusto from now on out, okay? And maybe not only in this place, but also on Facebook or wherever I find ways to do that. Because you do not have to suffer if you got your Dantian in order. It doesn't have to be a problem anymore. And I'm sure that works if you've had kids just as well, maybe even better. So thank you for watching, and see you around, okay? See you soon with more on this and on other subjects as they float into my space. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.